Jambo, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Safari Mack Returns to Africa. I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you better pack your bags for a little side trip as we leave the Serengeti and go south to Lake Victoria, more specifically the southwestern part of Lake Victoria, to Rubondo Island National Park, where we're looking for one of the most sought-after birds on safari by birdwatchers, the Shoebill Stork, or known by their Latin name of Balaniceps rex. Please don't ask me to say this name 3 times fast. I'm already getting a tongue twister just saying it the first time. So if we got our bird watching binoculars ready, we'll get started. But before we begin, if you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Check out my Facebook page for content on conservation. And if you have a question about animals, or if there's an animal that you want me to do in the future, you just have to send me an email, which you will always find the link to down in the description below. But if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get started. You know, in terms of their evolution and family, it's pretty interesting. But first, a little history about how we humans discovered it. Now, this bird was thought to have been originally seen by the ancient Egyptians, but they weren't really be classified by Europeans until the 19th century. And that's when we would also take a few of these birds back home to Europe for study. Now, it was said that these birds were thought to have originated around 30 million to 40 million years ago, and while they are part of the stork family, it's actually said that they belong to the order of the Pelecaniformes, so they have a little bit of a place within the pelican family, but not quite enough. And that's just genetics talking, or molecular data. Now, let's look into their habitat, lifestyle, and their nesting. So these birds, if you want to go to Africa yourself to see them out in the wild, you need to go to the East Africa, where they are mostly found from the freshwater swamps, marshes, and wetlands of eastern central Africa. Now, their habitat is characterized by being with thick, tall vegetation such as papyrus, reeds, and even floating grasses, particularly where the oxygen in the water is actually poor. And as a result, fish that live in these waters have to come up to the surface to get their intake of air just to survive. Now, the birds themselves are generally solitary, which they will defend an area of up to 2 to 4 square kilometers, and don't really travel together in groups, unlike other species of storks. But that's not to say that's all the time, especially when it comes to breeding. Male and females will pair together, and mom will lay anywhere from 1 to 3 white eggs, to where they work together to actually build a kind of floating nest that's 2.5 meters wide. And what's even more wilder than that, these nests are not in a tree, they're not on the ground, they're floating. That's right, they actually build a floating nest on the water to keep their eggs safe from other predators. And another great trick about that is as a way of helping to keep the eggs cool and not overheat during incubation, which take up 30 days, Mom and Dad will actually take scoops of water in their bills and will douse their own eggs with it. So talk about keeping your kids cool without having to look for shade. So usually 30 days later, after Mom and Dad continuously sit on their eggs, the eggs will hatch. However, it's said that they will, unfortunately, the bigger of the 3 will often ultimately win out, while the other 2 don't usually survive. And then they are known to take flight after 105 days of being with Mom and Dad, but they will actually still be fed for another month or more after this. And then it will take these birds at least 3 years before they're considered to be fully grown and mature enough to start their own families. Now, of course, for this kind of bird living in the swampy lands, nothing satisfies their diet than fish. And very special kinds of fish, such as tilapia, beecher or bichir fish, tilapia fish, even a kind of fish that we know as lungfish. All thanks to these fish having to come up to the surface to breathe air, this makes it easier for the birds to catch and strike their prey. But of course, they're not just gonna, if fish isn't available, that's not to say that there's not other things on their menu. They'll occasionally go for amphibians, snakes, young crocodiles, even small mammals. So if you're small, watch out. Now, in terms of their part in human culture, boy have they left their mark, especially in social media as one of the ultimate sources of memes. Like this guy, the dino bird. Sorry about that, not that dino. This guy. I mean, basically they look like a dinosaur, and I think that Tyrannosaurus would have taken that as a compliment, as we all know birds are basically dinosaurs. But there's more than just that. They're actually more famous, especially on TikTok, with one video showing of a bird giving a kind of staring into your soul like they're going to kill you in another minute while in the rain. But besides that, they've also been featured as the inspiration for a kind of loft-wing bird, or the design of this, in the 2011 game The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. So not only are they looking like they're going to kill you, they've also got a pretty cool look, in video games at least. Now, let's take a look into the wild things. Now, these birds are one of the 5 most sought-after birds to be observed by birdwatchers in Africa, and they are said to be extremely docile with humans, showing almost no aggression. This one here has even been called the real-life hippogriff from J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. However, that's not to say that despite of course their death-like stare, this is just because they rarely blink their eyes. But don't be fooled. I mean, these birds while they won't attack humans as much, they can still be aggressive if needed, using that killer-like beak as a shock absorber, which also can pierce into the prey and kill them. And of course, they are also known, thanks to that shoe-like bill. Basically, that bill is more for just striking. They're also known to make noise with it, in which the sound clattering together, it sounds like a machine gun going off. But did you know that they're also known to make a kind of moo sound? Finally, one of the grosser things about these birds is that they are known to defecate on their legs, but they do this as a way of keeping cool, especially in the hot sun. Now, unfortunately, these birds face problems, more specifically habitat loss, especially the degradation of swampland as humans go in and change the landscape for livestock loss, even intentionally setting fires for human encroachment. Of course, they've also been poached to be captured and sold on the markets, either alive or even their eggs have been stolen and used for consumption. Now, of course, that's not to say that conservation efforts aren't underway. In fact, 2 birds, one named Sam and Bawila, were actually raised in human care or captivity and then were released back into the wild, and they have shown to have success. Now, zoos have kept these birds in human care, but they haven't had a lot of great success in terms of breeding. That is, of course, unless you are Paris d'Aiza of Belgium or Zoo Tampa of Lowry Park. In fact, I would want to talk to them myself and see what they do for breeding success. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time I have for the Shoebill Stork. Join me next week as we look into the lives of the African fishing eagle. But until then, I'll see you all out there.